Today, when travel-minded Americans are looking for new places to go, new things to see, the spotlight of attention is being focused more and more on a tiny corner of our big country, far to the north and east. This is New England, 6 states famed in our country's history. Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. For 3 centuries, New England has been a land of growing cities, centers of trade and transportation, of rushing rivers that power thousands of factories and public utilities, of busy harbors, crossroads of the world since the days of the whalers and the clipper ships, of great universities whose men of letters and of law, of art and science have influenced the thinking of many generations. But in addition, New England has always been a famed vacation land, a paradise of mountain peaks and tumbling streams, of placid lakes and pastoral beauty, of rugged shores and quiet harbors. Today, when fine motor highways make travel swift and easy, it's hard to decide where our camera journey should begin. So, let's follow the example of the Pilgrims and start here at the old town of Plymouth, where the first New England colony was born. Down by the water's edge, under a graceful canopy of native stone, is Plymouth Rock. This wave-washed old rock commemorates the landing of the Pilgrims, who first set foot here in 1620. Every year, thousands of modern pilgrims come to gaze down upon this imperishable symbol of freedom in the New World. Above the town, weathered markers stand sentinel on Burial Hill, sentinel over the last resting place of an historic band. Here lies William Bradford, famous governor and historian of the Plymouth colony. And in nearby Duxbury are the graves of other famous first Americans, Captain Miles Standish, military protector of the colony, handsome John Alden, who spoke for himself, and Priscilla, the fair maiden whose heart he won. The Plymouth colony included nearby Cape Cod, toward which the road curves its way past countless bays and inlets. To picturesque Provincetown, summer visitors return year after year. It was here that the Mayflower first dropped her anchor in the New World, and the towering Pilgrim's Monument commemorates that epoch-making voyage. Men of New England first came by sea, and have always won renown on the sea, as naval heroes, explorers, traders, or fishermen. Here, each new generation learns the ways of the ocean. Young skippers sail their own small boats like veterans. But if you want to see this colorful junior rainbow fleet of Nantucket, you'll have to take to the sea yourself, for the only way to the island of Martha's Vineyard and on to Nantucket is over the water, by comfortable steamer with your car stowed snugly away below deck, or by plane if you're one of those who prefer the skyway to the ways of the sea. However you come, it's worth the trip. On Martha's Vineyard, you'll see the cliffs of Gay Head, painted by nature in strange and lovely hues. You'll visit Nantucket, one of the most famous seaports of colonial days, for Nantucket whalers sailed to every known part of the world. The old town retains a dignity and charm seldom found in these hectic modern days. You can relax here, wear what you want, do what you please. In fact, you'll be charmed wherever you go on the islands or the Cape if you enjoy the sight of quaint cottages and flowers in endless profusion. If you take along some color film for your camera, you'll be tempted to use it all right here, for color is everywhere. And if you're an artist, this part of New England will call you back again and again. Familiar scenes on the Cape and the islands have been portrayed 1,000 times over, but their attraction never fades. Not far from the Cape is another famed resort, Newport in Rhode Island. Among its many historic landmarks is the old Colony House, scene of many stirring events in our country's history. Here's a much older relic, whose origin is shrouded in mystery, But many believe that this tower was built by the Vikings, who touched these shores long before the Pilgrims. Later generations made Newport famous as a gathering place for wealth and society. Millionaire's Row, with its ornamental gates, beautifully landscaped gardens, and enormous mansions, is still a showplace. Between these palatial homes and the sea runs Cliff Walk, a favorite strolling spot for summer visitors. And if the day is warm, beautiful Easton's Beach is just below. Beaches like this stretch all along the coast of New England, from Connecticut to Maine. Old Orchard, Ogunquit, Kennebunkport, names that have been famous for generations. Rye, Revere, Nantasket, and a score of others, all within easy reach on U.S. major highways. Whether you like to be part of a gay holiday crowd or prefer the wide open spaces, the beach of your choice is here. There's plenty of room for the whole family to play or picnic on the sand, and it's a paradise for children. Whether it's splashing through the breakers or digging in the sand, New England's beaches are tops with the younger set. And as for Fido, well, just ask him. How about it, boy? Having fun? Be sure that you bring your camera along. There's so much beautiful scenery to photograph. Many other things in New England deserve a place in your photo album, too. For example, this famous old whaling ship at the Marine Museum in Mystic, Connecticut. It represents the golden era of 100 New England seaports and honors the memory of those men who went down to the sea in ships. The Charles W. Morgan is the last of its type, and a walk along its decks brings to life many a famous tale of the sea. Here you'll see old skills reenacted, trades that are now all but forgotten, brought to life by the museum staff as they replace the worn rigging or splice a rope in the old manner. Deft fingers take a tuck here, make a twist there, and the golden rope is joined in a strong, clean bond that has a beauty all its own. Nearby buildings contain a treasure house of maritime lore. Many similar museums along the coast provide a liberal education on New England's seafaring history. And speaking of education, don't miss the antique shops, as if you ever could, with their unique signs beckoning to the tourist on every highway. Even though you have no intention of buying, there's no harm in just looking. And among the collections of things old and things quaint, you'll find many bits of early Americana that will increase your knowledge of the past. Whether it is a proud golden eagle, rigged to turn in the wind, or simple utensils, such as every colonial housewife used, much of New England's past lies treasured here in these old wayside shops, a past that goes deep into the roots of America. Traveling northward again, we come to the famous seashore region around Boston, where boating is the chief attraction. Scituate, Cohasset, Hull, sailboats of every class proudly bear these familiar names. Entering Boston, most through highways give the tourist a view of the city across the Charles River. Landmarks on the skyline are the old Custom House Tower and the newer courthouse. The red brick and brownstone houses on Beacon Street are other familiar landmarks of this old New England city. But perhaps your grandmother will best remember the public gardens, where flowers bloom from spring to fall, and graceful swan boats glide without effort around the coves and islands of a fairyland lake, while the enchanted passengers feed gaily colored ducks that swim alongside. On the shore of the pond, friendly squirrels beg for peanuts and pay for them with amusing acrobatics. Wherever one turns in this historic old city, there are mementos of a proud and stirring past. On this hilltop, the Bunker Hill Monument stands in perpetual commemoration of those who fought that early battle of the Revolutionary War. Here, dead pages from history books seem to come to life. The children of Boston are on familiar terms with Paul Revere and the Old North Church. It was from these windows that the signal light sent Revere on his famous ride, and the motorist can follow his route to Lexington Green. Little changed since that day when 77 Minutemen met the British troops here in the first actual engagement of the Revolution. At one end of the green is the Minuteman statue, and nearby, Buckman Tavern, where the Minutemen assembled. At the spot where they stood to meet the British, a stone marker bears Captain Parker's historic order. Stand your ground. Don't fire unless fired upon. But if they mean to have a war, let it begin here. From behind such stone walls as this on the road to Concord, the embattled farmers harassed the British troops. And at the Concord battleground, this statue honors their heroic stand for freedom and justice. By the rude bridge that arched the flood, their flag to April's breeze unfurled, here once the embattled farmers stood and fired the shot heard round the world. Turning seaward again, US 1 leads to Marblehead, boating center of Boston's famed North Shore. Here, trim yachts create a traffic jam on the harbor, and visitors walk along the headlands, watching the graceful passage of white sails on their way out to sea. Another tourist center farther north is picturesque Gloucester, where Grand Banks fishermen make their homes, where artists and visitors feel the tang of the sea as the ships unload, or an old fisherman mends his nets. New Hampshire's coastline is a short but beautiful one, with many beaches and lovely homes that face the scenic drive along the famous Rye shore. Nearby Portsmouth offers some of the most beautiful scenic drives to be found along the coast. Island hopping it might be called, for you drive from island to island over smooth, safe highways. Cross the bridge at Portsmouth and you're in Maine. No single trip can do justice to the coast of Maine. Its beauty and variety recall vacationists year after year. If you like a picturesque lighthouse, a bit of sea-swept shore, or one of the popular coast resorts such as York or Wells, whatever your inclination, you'll find it here. A motor trip along this beautiful coast takes you past quaint little fishing villages that dot the shores of rocky coves. The highway curves around snug harbors, and nearby a strange experience awaits you. The desert of Maine. Who'd expect to find a desert in this part of the world? But here it is, in the midst of a fertile farm area. This strange natural phenomenon has taken place. In a little less than 60 years, sand has boiled up from below to cover the tops of high trees and encroach on the buildings of a once prosperous farm. Year by year, the sand has pushed up until today it spreads over almost 500 acres. In many places, colored sands appear, multi-hued pigments that spread over wide areas, ready to come to life at the scrape of a stick or even the scuff of a shoe. But nature, the master colorist, has even more pigments at her command. Brilliant marsh grasses add an exciting burst of flame against the unrolling landscape, and summer wildflowers carpet the meadows on both sides of the road. Quiet, windless mornings turn every inlet into a canvas of bright-hued reflections. Even the big city of Portland takes advantage of the natural beauty of the coastline with scenic drives that wind in and out around the bay and harbor. Here in the central section, made up of deep, narrow inlets, tourists will remember such names as Booth Bay, Damariscotta, and Pemaquid. Colorful Grand Banks fishing boats make these ports their home, and luckily, some of them are available to visitors. The Georgie Bowden, for instance, one of the famous Friendship sloops. Every morning during the summer, she takes aboard a party of vacation sailors, and with her decks loaded, heads out to sea on a new and thrilling adventure. With a real old Downey skipper at the helm, you travel past fascinating islands, tide-washed coves, and through channels never sighted by those who remain on land. Once out of the harbor, the sails are raised, and the fresh, clean smell of the open sea gets into your blood as you glide silently under swaying sails into a new experience of delight. By the time the trip is over and you near the dock, you'll find that sea air does wonders for the appetite. What better time than this to try a native lobster? You'll find them served in all kinds of places and in a wide variety of styles. No traveler along the coast can ever doubt that here lobster is a favorite delicacy. If this is your first experience, you'll probably prefer them served in style. New England chefs vie with one another in making lobster a dish truly fit for a king. Whether cold or hot, this colorful food tempts your palate. And as you pry out the first tender morsel of firm, juicy meat, drench it well in hot, melted butter. Then taste. To the initiate, however, no lobster can compare to one personally chosen and cooked out of doors. Popped into steaming salt water and tagged with your name, it emerges a few minutes later, ready to melt in your mouth. Carried to a table a few feet from the ocean, with the salt air as an appetizer, lobster reaches its peak of perfection. A heavenly aroma meets the nostrils as the shell is broken open and forks are superfluous as you pry out the meat. Is it good? It's wonderful. Eating lobster in the open is just one of 100 culinary delights you'll find in New England. Even from where you sit at the table, you might see an old-time lobsterman setting out in his dory. In all kinds of weather, he rows along the coast, following the line of colored buoys that float above his pots. Each pot is hauled in hand over hand, and not until it breaks above the surface can the lobsterman count his catch. There are disappointments and hard work, but a good haul like this makes up for the poor ones. The old-time lobsterman can take care of 30 to 40 pots a day, but the modern lobsterman with his motorboat and power rig may have 250 pots or more. Modern methods have brought this tasty New England delicacy within reach of more and more people everywhere. As you approach the world-famous views of Bar Harbor, you're entering a new kind of Maine, steeper, more rugged. Marvelously planned and constructed highways carry you easily along the rugged coast. There are vistas of the restless Atlantic framed in the wind-swept pines, entrancing little coves, half-shadowed at your feet. Dashing waves that beat eternally against the rocky shore. Climbing still upward, the highway leads to the top of Cadillac Mountain in the center of Acadia National Park. From the summit, a gorgeous panorama of lakes, islands, and ocean lies spread out at your feet. Still a different kind of beauty awaits as you head toward the White Mountains, the rugged peak of Shikarawa reflected in the blue water below. Quaint old covered bridges that cross and recross swift mountain streams. Along the way, safe parking areas have been provided near spots of scenic interest. Easy trails that wind through mountain splendor lead to such thrilling spectacles as this. Glen Ellis Falls, pouring in torrents down the sheer face of the cliff. At the top of Pinkham Notch, you get your first unobstructed view of Mount Washington. You can drive your own car up the mountain, but it's much less wearing to use an available bus service. From the floor of the valley, your ascent is both sudden and rugged, first through the trees, then into the sky above the timberline. Mapped out and constructed before the turn of the century, this famous old toll road has been in almost continuous operation. The halfway house provides a chance to stretch and cool boiling radiators. The first trippers in the party marvel at the heavy chains that hold down the buildings, a necessary precaution here on the mountain where wind velocity frequently reaches the force of a gale. The height of the mountain range makes this area a brewing spot for all kinds of weather. And as your car climbs upward, beautiful clouds scud past at racehorse speed. Then one long final swing around what seems to be the very rim of the world, and the summit comes into view. A short, mad dash up the last steep incline, and you're on the top. 6,288 feet above sea level. As you step out of the car and walk over to the rim, the world seems to fall away below you into the blue haze of distance. Of course, you don't have to climb Mount Washington by car. You can hike, that is, if you have what it takes. Or from the other side of the mountain, you can ride up on the famous Cog Railway. One of the most popular attractions in the mountains, these noisy little engines push a carload of passengers up an amazing track system that appears to climb almost vertically. At every point along the way, new vistas of grandeur spread out in all directions, until at last only puffs of smoke mark their progress as the little trains become lost in the clouds. Not far from Mount Washington, the old man of the mountain presents an ever-changing profile as passing cloud forms cast their shadows across the great stone face. Still farther below, a woodland path leads to Flume Gorge, a deep fissure 700 feet in length, cut through the rock strata. The many different geological formations in New England are not only beautiful, but often useful and valuable. The famous quarries of Vermont, for example, produce some of the finest granite and marble in the world. Giant blocks weighing many tons are carefully raised by powerful cranes and shipped away. They call Vermont the granite center of the world, and she produces more marble than any other state. Vermont uses marble, too. Here at Rutland, you may see this unique church built entirely of marble. This marble walk at Proctor is a veritable rainbow in stone. And here's a marble bridge. Wherever you drive in Vermont, the ranges of the Green Mountains form majestic views. From Mount Mansfield, highest in the state, vistas of forest and farmland stretch away to the shores of Lake Champlain. Through Smuggler's Notch, contraband goods were carried from Canada to Boston during the War of 1812. In New England, there's water, water everywhere, streams and falls and lakes. In spring and early summer, dashing streams beckon to the trout fishermen, and quiet lakes lure anglers far off the beaten path. A growing band of early vacationists return each year to relive the thrill of hooking a big one. Did somebody say bass? Oh boy! From the broad sweeping vistas of Lake Champlain to 1,000 tiny lakes hidden in the woods and hills, your car is a magic carpet that transports you right to the water's edge. There are hundreds of camps for boys and girls, which accommodate thousands of children every year. You can join the summer throng close to the big cities, or take your family to some remote and quiet shore, or even cool off in a dashing mountain stream. If the bright flash of canoes on still water is your wish, or the swift flight of a powerful motor, it's waiting for you here. You can ride on an excursion boat to Isles of Enchantment, or take to the air if your vacation time is short. All over New England, strategically located airports have planes ready to fly you in the wink of an eyelash, close to the resort of your choosing, whether it's mountains, lakes, or seashore that suit you best. Wherever you go, there are plenty of accommodations, everything from tourist homes and cabins to luxurious hotels. There's recreation of every kind. If golf is your game, more than 600 beautiful courses lie ready to test your skill. But for most of us, a lot of the fun of seeing New England is just taking it easy along smooth, shady highways. In the valleys, rich farmlands make an endless panorama of rural beauty. Even the rocky hills that make tough going for the farmer give the motorist an ever-changing view through every season of the year. From spring to fall, flowers border the roads and meadows and bloom in every kitchen garden. And juicy fruit hangs heavy on the orchard trees. a temptation no real boy could resist. With the first touch of frost in the hollows, a new richness pervades the scene, and soon every landscape is painted with colors that only the brush and palette of a master could ever reproduce. At first, only a single tree bursts into flame, beside a riverbank or in a pasture land. Then suddenly, the full color symphony of autumn blazes into glorious red and gold. From Connecticut to Maine, touring New England in the fall is an experience never to be forgotten, whether you choose the wide sweeping parkways or follow the smooth highways that wind their way through never-ending glory. Go where you like, through the Berkshire Hills of Massachusetts or the mountains of Vermont, but go while the leaves still arch the highways with a canopy of gold. These are days, too, for sport in the open air, days to enjoy the golden sunshine and the smell of autumn. Yes, it's a good time to be out of doors, for the days get shorter as the sun goes south, and soon the leaves will fall. The trees will be bare, chill winds will whip the skies, and then the snow. Fleecy flakes float down to spread a soft white mantle over forest, field, and highway. And now a new season of fun begins for young and old, as plows appear on every hand to clear the roads, to open up the highways that lead to New England's winter wonderland. Highways that carried fishermen in spring and visitors to seashore, lakes, and mountains in the summer and the fall, now speed eager vacationists to the famous ski slopes in the Berkshire Hills and in the rugged mountains of New Hampshire and Vermont. There's plenty of room to park, and the bracing winter air adds a new zest to outdoor sports. If you've never learned to ski, a new thrill is waiting for you here. Skiing isn't just a sport, say those who've tried it. It's a way of life, something that gets into your blood. If you're the adventurous type, maybe you'll just put on a pair of skis and climb the slopes on your own. But it's not quite as easy as it looks. So perhaps you'd better join a beginner's class like this and get started off right. When you've learned to stay on your feet, you can try one of the rope tows that pull you up the easy slopes. Or maybe you'd rather do it like this, with a little help from behind. Coming down again, even on an easy slope like this, you begin to feel that thrill of smooth, effortless movement. If you keep on with your lessons, it isn't long before you're on the higher slopes, learning to do the snowplow turn under the coaching of an expert teacher. It gets harder as you progress from class to class, but far more thrilling, too. When you can do this without knocking down a flag, you're ready for the chair tows that lead to the high mountain trails. The ascent is a thrill in itself. Swiftly and easily, your aerial chair whisks you up the steep mountainside, while the snow-clad earth drops away below you, and you soon find yourself almost on top of the world. At the summit of each famous ski tow, you'll find a comfortable lodge. You can get rest, refreshment, and a healthy tan from the brilliant mountain sunlight. And now for the trail, where at last you're on your own, and the hard work and long hours of practice pay dividends worth more than gold. For the experienced skier, this is the goal, the swift schuss The graceful slalom, silent as the wind and faster than a bird. But you don't have to be a skier or even athletically inclined to enjoy the more luxurious ski tows that carry you in comfort and safety while you enjoy magnificent mountain scenery like this, or speed you through the air a mile up from the highway in the parking lot below into a magic land of shimmering crystal. These are the same mountains where you fished in spring or camped in summer. How different now, but still within easy reach of anyone who drives a car. Yes, all New England invites you to happy motoring. Whether you have the urge to smell the salt spray of a summer sea, to taste the winey tang of autumn air, or visit a sparkling fairyland like this, answer that urge. Take to the highway. It's New England calling.